and welcome to Real Live Interviews. I'm Jackie Allison, and today it is my pleasure to speak with Susan Muir, who is an investor relations professional. And it's wonderful to have you join us in the studio, Susan. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Jackie.
Yeah, well, it's great. We're looking forward so much to hearing your story. We've known each other for quite a while here, and we have even worked together. But you know what? The careers are quite long, and we find that people who are in investor relations come from many different backgrounds. So it'd be wonderful to hear a bit about your background specifically, a bit about your education, your career, and then we can talk about whatever comes up. So I'll leave it over to you to introduce yourself a bit more fully to our audience.
Sure. So I started my background, educational background, was actually in journalism. So I graduated with a degree in that from Concordia. We ended up, my husband and I, moving to Toronto in the early 80s, and that career path just didn't seem to pan out. So my first job was working with a mining analyst at a small boutique shop in Toronto. And that led to effectively 25 years working in equity research, generally analyzing precious metals equities. And then from there, I decided to make a move into the corporate side, and ended up working with Barrick Gold for about 10 years, which was just a fabulous opportunity. Learned a ton at a big mining company like that, and went on to work for a smaller zinc company, which was where we worked together, of course. And we can go into this later, but have wound up in the end doing some board work. So that's a kind of shortish kind of outline of my career.
So right there, you've touched on a number of different types of companies, and maybe you could tell us, maybe what you saw, some of the differences. You've worked, as you said, on the sell side, you've worked in the corporate arena, and that brings different draws on your own skill set, and you've developed along the way. And but some people might not know too much about what it means to work in, say, equities research, and so maybe you could touch on a little bit of that and what was required of you there.
Yeah, so effectively, I worked with a mining analyst. A couple of different mining analysts, actually. But really what you're doing is you're running earnings models on the companies that you cover, and, generating a recommendation, whether it's buy, sell, or hold, and generating research reports on the companies you cover. Sometimes that entails going to a site visit and seeing the assets for yourself. Just to get
right. So a lot it can be involved when it's mining, and in fact, that is where we met. I believe many years ago.
That's correct. Yeah.
On one of my first mine visits, but you were already quite experienced, and it was great to learn and see how things were done. But yeah, so one of the very, I'd say, exciting aspects of equities research and mining is that travel and getting to know the minds of the community. So you're describing a scenario where you're actually digging very deep into the companies, seeing firsthand what they're doing on the ground, as well as reports.
That's correct. And so, you have what's available to the public in terms of the public disclosure of the companies. But when you get to go to the mine site, you're able to talk to some of the other employees and the technical people, and you generally do get kind of a broader picture of what's going on at the operation. So your analysis and your recommendation.
Right, and you get to see a bit about the community as well, and the country that we're in. And these mines are not in cities most of the times; they're out in the rural areas, and so there's a lot to be learned about what's going on there and the dynamics and relationships that are developed.
Absolutely.
Yes, exciting stuff, but also quite high pressure. So, I mean, when you think about being on top of news and having to get opinions out there quickly and be accurate, it's quite demanding. How would you say you coped with some of that? It's probably not for everybody, but
I would say that developed over time. At the beginning of my career, I guess the internet wasn't really around at that point, and so we were literally, just to give you an example, like getting a daily, metal prices and providing those to the sales desk, and things like that. And then by the end of my career, you're signed up for, getting pinged with news items, all of the time. So it's just overwhelming information, coming into you all the time. And it is difficult. You do have to remain focused, but you also have to pay attention to the news flow and what's coming out. So,
and what's important, you'd say. So it's managing that information once it came from every direction, and email, and long gone were the days of faxes and
exactly. No, that's right. Yeah. So it is, a really becomes an exercise in effective time management.
For sure. And so once you left equities research, you went to work with Barrick. So now you're inside one of the companies that you were previously covering. So different perspective there. How did your how did your equities research experience help you as an investor relations professional?
So, senior management would kind of look to me in a meeting and say, well, what do you think the sell side, the analysts will think of this, if it was a capex increase or that sort of thing, or kind of even more valuable to them was perspective of what type of questions are they likely to ask on a call or any kind of other type of market call, and really just that insight from the sell side, what the analysts are looking for, and effectively it's generally what number can I plug into my model, but there's also the types of questions that are a little bit more to do with the social aspect and that type of thing. So they're really looking for my perspective of what a sell side analyst is going to ask.
Yeah, so you're helping them with that perspective to get some insight into what to expect, what reaction,
and they can prepare. And they can prepare.
Yes,
prepare
so
better ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So that does help them to present a better picture and a better face in the public arena. So helpful there. Right. And having done the detailed modeling that comes with equities research, you understood how the sell side would treat that data, what they do with it, what they might be asking for next, and so on.
Yes.
Right. So Barrick's a big company at one end of the spectrum, you could say, for gold companies. And following that, you also got experience working with a much smaller outfit. So maybe tell us a bit about the differences there and what that brought that was new.
Right. Well, we had some of the same infrastructure that we had at Barrick. And what I liked about Barrick was they were incredibly thorough about corporate governance. And so, meetings where you spoke about the disclosure and all aspects of it, and got everybody's input, legal and, technical and financial. So yes, absolutely. Some of that still applies with a smaller company, but, I would have to say to a lesser extent. But a smaller company can also be more nimble, I would say, than a larger company. So I enjoyed that aspect of it, more entrepreneurial, and things just happened sort of faster, quicker. So that was kind of just a fun transition for me to go to a smaller company.
And one of the things that comes with smaller companies is there's less people and less support staff. So there's a lot of doing, the job that maybe others would have done in a much bigger outfit.
Yes, absolutely. That was a little bit of a difficult adjustment, I guess I would say, for me. And yeah, there were new skill sets that I had to learn. But that also in the end, became interesting and fun to learn. So you do become a jack of all trades when you work for a smaller company. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you learn as you go, because you're not always aware of what's coming next or all the detail that was being handled by someone else while you focused on some of the bigger things. And so, smaller company it's a little bit of a different environment, but you do come out with a whole lot of skill because, as you said, you've had to do it yourself. So
definitely,
that's good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So, and then you've of course have had exposure to not just precious metals, but base metals and some of the market dynamics there as well, and understanding and having to explain that to not just others internally, but also to the buy side, which are the investors who want to understand the company that you're with now, and you become the face of that company to many of the investors.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the difficulty becomes when you're speaking to a non-technical person or a generalist investor, and they don't have the technical background, and if there's some sort of issue, a technical issue, it becomes a challenge to try and help them understand, what the issue is and how you're going to overcome it. And they just immediately want to assume the worst. So that is the challenge, is getting that information across to a non-technical person.
Yeah, well, it certainly does help having worked on different sides of the business to be able to explain those things in the right way. And it's not just what's the answer, it's how it's delivered. That's really important as well.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good. Thanks for sharing. So tell us a little bit then about your family, because it's not all about work. You've got two lovely daughters.
I do, yes, and a granddaughter now as well.
Yes,
And
congrats again.
yeah, thank you. And so I was single mother for quite some time when my kids were growing up. So definitely a challenge. The mining business or the financial business, it's pretty all consuming, especially when you're trying to further your career. And so, I have to say, quite honestly, that there unfortunately wasn't much of a work-life balance, but all do is do your best. I think I managed to pull it off.
Yes, well, they grew up well, and they've, as you say, have now got families of their own, and in
Yeah.
the sense that they're both married, and now you've got that grandchild, lovely
Yes.
granddaughter. So, and this is something that is reality. That work does take a lot of time. It's not just what you're doing, talking to the investors, talking to the other people at the company. There's so much reading, so many things to know, and be able to really understand that. And then you're putting out press releases, and those come when they come, and they've got to be
That's right.
done very well because they're going out into the public space and they can't be changed that easily once they go.
That's
So
right.
yeah, lots of pressures, and so the family can suffer sometimes in the sense that you're not as home as much as maybe you'd have liked to. Is that one of the things you say you would have faced during
Yeah,
that
well,
time?
it's that, and it's also, when you get to a certain level. I left Barrick as a vice president. When you get to that level, you effectively are on call
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
24/7.
Right.
So, that phone is always nearby, and you have to be responsive. And so when you're home, there's still obviously a good chance that somebody's going to be reaching out to you by email or phone and needing something from work.
Yeah, well, that again, it's good for people to know that your life is not necessarily your own completely, even when you're at home. So it's the responsibility that comes with a position, and a vice president's a senior role, and you're advising senior management. So very serious work, and being on call means that you just have to be ready when there's news, and you can't control the timing of news. Very often for mining companies, something happens or reporting's on a schedule. Maybe there's a bit more control around that, but it's a huge process when there's lots of mines, and of course news can
Yeah.
come up at any time that just has to be dealt with.
Yeah,
So
and for instance, at Barrick at one point, I think we had 25, 26 mines. So there's always something going on somewhere around
some
the
of it's
world,
good,
whether it's
some of it not so
Papua
good,
New
and I
Guinea
know
or Argentina or what have
yeah,
you. So yeah, that's it.
yeah, different countries, and so exciting to be able to see all those places. And you went to, I guess, not quite a few of Barrick's mines with investors, and maybe without as well, and
Yes,
got to see lots of stuff. So it's great, great life experience having that opportunity. But the
absolutely.
responsibility is also quite big, and it does draw you away. You can't be 100% necessarily with your family, even when you're at home. As you say,
Right.
phone's there and you're on call. So good to know. So work-life balance, one of the challenges with the role, probably for most senior people in companies, not just mining companies even. So would you say that was probably one of the bigger challenges, and or anything else
Yeah,
you?
yeah, I think so. I think that probably ranks up there. And just when issues come up that, again, as you point out, you have no control over, and trying to message that as best you can. And some of them are pretty difficult problems that happen on the environmental, social governance front, and so it's not easy to find a solution for some of these issues that come up, and try and preserve the company's reputation, and the integrity of the company, and that's your goal, obviously. So we face some pretty big challenges at Barrick,
Right.
and also at my subsequent job.
So it's
Side.
working through the problems and then
Yeah.
communicating that sometimes internally as well as externally. And your role was more than just investors. You had some other. Did you have internal communications as well that you? speak to?
Well, at Barrick, I did at Arizona Mining. At Barrick, communications was a
Mm.
separate department, but we worked very closely with them.
Yes, right.
Mm.
Good tight connection there. So would you say you have any time for hobbies along the way?
Yeah, some, not a lot. I guess the one that I had probably in the last 10 years, unfortunately not this year, was the Toronto Film Festival.
Hmm.
I am a huge film buff, so that was something I always made time for every year. But unfortunately,
Yes,
yeah, it's all virtual this year, so I'm not
that's
taking.
right. Yes, as much as possible, we do try to keep some outside interests and not just be 100% at work. I mean, we
Yes,
give so much to work, but yeah, it's good to have something else in there that you can enjoy. And for you, I know that you had a lot of interest there in films, and
yeah,
good that you could get out and do it. And hopefully, we can get back to physically being in cinemas safely and feel safe in the future as well, so we
I
can resume that. Yeah, well, that's wonderful. What are you doing now then? Could you tell us a bit more?
So I mentioned briefly at the beginning, after the last company I worked with was actually bought by an Australian company, and so my position was redundant. I decided at that point that I was going to retire from full time work, and was seeking board work, and it transpired that I was taken on as a board member by a small development company with a project in Malawi. It's a rare earth project in Malawi, Africa. So I've been on the board of that company for 2 years now, and we're in the midst of a feasibility study on the project. So it's been very exciting to see the project brought from exploration now into feasibility, and hopefully within the next year or two into actual development and construction.
Right. So you're able to take your experience you've had both in the corporate arena as well as in the on the sell side to the
Yes.
board and bring that in, and so that's quite helpful for them to round out
Yes.
the board. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
a different kind of a role, but obviously your years of experience are contributing hugely to that. So congrats on
Yeah,
that.
in terms of how the market is going to react to a certain piece of news or not. Do we need to disclose this? Should we wait? Should we, no, we can't wait, that sort of thing. So it's just about making sure that our disclosure is appropriate. And this was the great experience that I had at Barrick, just learning about good corporate governance and
Mhm.
transparency.
Yes, wonderful. And you're also active with the PDAC as well.
Yes, I joined the planning committee for Prospectors Developers Association of Canada for their big mining convention in Toronto 2 years ago. And so I've been through one normal PDAC, and then this upcoming one, we're still in the process of deciding what the format's going to be for 2021. But that's been a great experience as well, working with other mining professionals and putting the program together, the technical program together for PDAC.
Yeah, it's a huge conference, and it's great that you can do that. And hopefully, again, we get all these physical conferences going again because it's a great networking opportunity. Now we're learning to network virtually, but it's great to be able to see people and have a meal with them during the conferences. Wonderful. Yeah, good presentations as well. So wonderful. I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us. It's really been a pleasure to hear your story. I think there's lots of people who really don't know how the different parts fit together, and what you've told us there will give them some perspective on that, and hopefully they can find their way. They can see that many different backgrounds in terms of your experience along the way that have contributed to where you are now and the work
Yeah,
that you're currently doing. So thanks very much. Enjoy your granddaughter, and thanks again for joining us today.
it was a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye bye.